Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hello there, and welcome again for another edition of the Conscious Living Podcast, where we are here to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. I'm Jackie Woodside, the founder and the host of the Conscious Living Podcast, and I am so glad that you are someone who is just willing and able and interested and motivated to think and spend time about how to live more consciously in our world. I firmly believe that any time any one of us grows in consciousness, all of humanity changes. So thank you for being here with us today. I am so happy to bring to the Conscious Living Podcast today an extraordinarily talented, gifted, and committed entrepreneur, Chris Cade. Chris is the founder of Spiritual Growth Events, spiritualgrowthevents.com, and he has just an interesting background as a certified firewalk instructor by the person who taught Tony Robbins how to firewalk, Sundoor's Peggy Dylan. He's swum with dolphins in the Bahamas, bent spoons with the Monroe Institute, and had left a six-figure Silicon Valley job to become a conscious entrepreneur. He's also a grateful full-time single dad out in California. So what an interesting and varied background, Chris. Welcome so much to the Conscious Living Podcast. Do you mind saying a little bit more about yourself so we can get to know you a bit more?
Yeah. So I never planned on actually being a conscious entrepreneur. That wasn't in the cards for me. Backtrack to about 2006, married, kid on the way, and again, the Silicon Valley six-figure job, all that stuff, white picket fence, have the condo, the fat 401k, the typical American dream. And at the same time, every time my wife would have a challenge in their relationship, she'd bring it up and we'd talk for a while. And I would listen. And then once she was done, I would pick up the rug, sweep it under, put the rug back down, and pretend like nothing had changed and that everything was fine. And after some amount of time, she just had enough. And she said, look, either you get a spiritual path or you get a divorce lawyer. And she had a spiritual path that supported her. And she wanted me to live consciously.
Yeah.
She knew I wasn't living consciously. And that was evident by the fact that my reaction was, I really want to throw her through the window right now. But it's 2 stories up. We kill the kid. I go to jail. This doesn't work for my white picket fence dream.
There you go.
So divorce, I don't like. So I guess I'll go check out the spirituality thing. And so, I'll kind of accelerate that part of the story. But basically, I stumbled into a spiritual path with synchronicities and delights, ultimately studying with the diamond approach for several years. But along that journey, what happened was I had started developing some spiritual websites as a way to generate more income so I could retire. I didn't care about making a difference. I didn't care about living consciously yet. I just wanted to make more money and get out of the corporate game faster. But what happened was, as my spiritual growth deepened, so did my entrepreneurial skills. They kind of went parallel and really fast. And so, like I said, 2006 was the ultimatum. But in 2009, I had already asked my employer to lay me off so that I could go do a big product launch, become a conscious entrepreneur, and lean into that full time, study the diamond approach. I basically dove, headfirst into all of that and just found a delight and a joy that I didn't know existed because I wasn't living consciously. I just wanted to hold on to my ideas of the world, as small as they were, and be comfortable, basically.
Wow. What was it that was so compelling to you that you threw yourself so headlong into it?
Well, when I started with the diamond approach, it was very tentative. I had gone to the Monroe Institute, which you mentioned in my bio. I went to their intro gateway voyage program, they call it. And after that, I was there one night and one of the teachers was saying, hey, you might want to check into the diamond approach. I'm like, Okay, fine. So, I went, after there, I went and bought the book Diamond Heart Book One. And what I did at the time is, again, with my Silicon Valley job, I just buy a ton of books, sit them down in a row, and see which one I felt called to read.
Nice.
And so I would have Diamond Heart Book One there along with some others. I'd look at it and go, yeah, no. And I'd go read something else. And next time, yeah, no, read something else.
Interesting.
And finally, one day I was like, okay, I'll read Diamond Heart Book One. And there was a chapter in there on truth. And the chapter alone fundamentally changed. It just changed the way I looked at the world. So many of us look at the idea of what we want in the world, and we go, oh, I want, a conscious living, life. We'll say, oh, I want a fancy car or a lot of money. And then we go, oh, what is that about? Oh, well, what I really want is security. What I really want is the feeling of ease in my life. What I really want is a great relationship. I want to feel joy, delight, right? And so that's how a lot of us approach conscious living. And that's how I was up until that point, approaching it. What can I get out of spirituality? And this chapter on truth made me realize that there's another way to look at it, which is not just, am I doing these things to get happy? What is the truth about myself in the moment? What actually makes me happy? Not do I do these things to get happiness, but what actually makes me happy? Do I have to be happy in the moment? And so this whole idea of truth just shifted me. Wow, I was chasing all the wrong things. What I really want is to know myself. What is the truth? Even when we talk about entrepreneurship, we can say, oh, I want the 7-figure $1 million job or the speaking gigs or all these things. But at the end of the day, the only thing that moves our business forward is truth. Do we look at the truth of what works in our business? These things work, these things don't. Do we look at the truth of how we show up in our business? Are we showing up in ways where we're delighted and enjoyed by it? Or is it work that we're begrudgingly get through? That's fine too, if we know that's truly what our experience is and we're present with that. But so often we don't look for the truth of the moment. We just kind of keep going off and be, human. We say that whole thing about, don't be a human doing, be a human being.
Yeah.
But we're still human doings often on the spiritual path until we drop back into seeking the truth for its own sake, not because truth gives me happiness, not because it gives me joy, money, or a great relationship, but because truth teaches me who I am and lets me love myself and experience myself and the world as it is without all the veils on top of it. So that chapter changed my life, but I still wasn't bought into the diamond approach. Okay. So I went to the first diamond approach workshop, weekend long thing, sat there. I was like, I really want joy. So I was still in that old mindset. I had the insight, but not the integration. Right. So I still wanted joy. That was the thing I really wanted. So I went to the diamond approach wanting joy. I didn't get it on that first weekend. But I thought, these tools they're teaching, they could get me there. Like if they applied this to joy, I could get my joy. And so, then a few months later, I went back to another one and, talked to the teacher. And it's one of those programs where when you dive in, you commit for years. It's not a short, weekend long path. These weekends are leading into something deeper. So I talked with my teacher and I said, I'm not sure the diamond approach is for me. I don't know if I'll be back. She goes, okay, that's fine, Chris. It's good seeing you. A few months later, I come back, do the workshop. Yeah, I don't know if the diamond approach is for me, but I don't know if I'll be back. That's fine, Chris. Good seeing you. And that went on for about 6 months. And then after 6 months, I looked back on who I had become and how I experienced myself. I was like, wow, I'm fundamentally changing at a deep level. And that was only 6 months of going like one weekend every month or two. What would it be like if I dove all in? And so at that point, I joined the school, really committed to it. Had the private teacher, the small group, the large group, studied for almost 10 years, 7 years with, all the groups in the structure, another 3 after that, just with my private teacher. And so, that was the shift for me. It was a progression. It wasn't just like, one piece, but there were different pieces that led me to it. But it was that pursuit of truth that catapulted me and changed me in ways that I could have never imagined.
That's what I want to follow up on. You're using this word and this notion of truth, and I'm so curious. There's so many of these words that we use in spiritual empowerment circles, and I can interpret that a myriad of ways.
Yeah.
So can you say more about when you say pursuit of truth or your truth of your business or your truth of the experience, what are you actually referring to? Can you dig in deeper to that?
Yeah. What I'm referring to is really clearing the veils in front of them so that we can see them as they are, see ourselves as we are. So often, when we look at business is a good example, we might look at what everybody else is doing to be successful. They ran this launch, they did this podcast, they did this summit, they made this product, they have these JV partners, the list goes on and on. An entrepreneur could be doing this for days, right? And, one of the things I love doing myself in my business is trying all these things out. Not just doing it because the guru said it works, but trying it out, giving it a solid effort, like learning what I'm doing, and then going, is this truly the best way to move my business forward? And I've done, like I said, just about everything under the sun to build my business. And now I have a new truth in my business and how I grow and show up. And I think that's part of where the gift is of pursuing the truth is our business, just as we do, will take different trajectories over time. At one point I was selling products and doing product launches. Then I started giving away products. Now I'm just giving away spiritual events. I don't have anything that I can sell, right? And that wouldn't happen if I just stuck to the idea of my job as a conscious entrepreneur is to sell online programs that change people's lives, which is what I did. I did it well. It was fun. It was fantastic. And it made money, but it's not where I'm at now. Because I wanted the truth of the moment to reveal to me what is next. What is next? What is next? The same is true when we look at our personal growth, our spiritual development, and ourselves, right? If we're always, like I was, chasing the joy, chasing the outcome, even if it's a spiritual outcome, I want to chase that lucid dreaming or the remote viewing, right? Even if we're always chasing those things, what if that's not how we're wired, right? So we tried it out, we check it out, but he's stuck on the idea that that's how spirituality is, or we see, Eckhart Tolle, peaceful, calm, dropped in. And then we can see Marianne Williamson, fiery on stage, going into politics, like two total different contrasts. And we go, well, I should be like Eckhart Tolle, or I should be like Marianne. Instead of going, what's the truth of how I show up in the world? Who would I be if I were trying to be any of those things, any of those people, get any of those things? And to be clear, I have no issues with getting joy and having tons of abundance and having a fantastic partner and being on stage or politics. I think all those things are fantastic expressions of our truth, right? And that was something actually tying into Marianne when someone said to her, I've lost all respect for you when you decided to go into politics.
Oh, wow.
She said, you know what? And I would have lost all respect for myself if I didn't.
Right.
That was her truth to step into. And so for me, that's what truth, the person.
Yeah, when you're saying truth, then again, I'm just going to reword because I want us to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Authentic, deepest spiritual and self-expression. Like what's true for me in this moment, which leads me back to your process, Chris, of deciding to leave your corporate process, your corporate job and identity, not just the job. A lot of people talk about that. They gave up their job or their career to pursue, a spiritual path or being a conscious entrepreneur. But it's not just the job, it's also the identity. So do you mind telling us that story and on how you decided you were going to leave a cushy, six-figure job, probably well-respected and have a strong identity in that way and pursue?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I was definitely bought into the identity of the successful six-figure Silicon Valley. At the time, I was a tester and then a test manager, technical product manager, and working closely with multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies where if something went wrong, it would, crash the economy, even if they're down for like a minute. It's
Really?
government agencies, some of the biggest banks in the world, airlines, you name it. Those are clients that were relying on the software that I was working on. And so it's very easy to have an ego about that when you walk into a room. And, yes, they may be the clients, but my job is to make sure the software works to keep all of these people, running and doing their jobs. And so for me, there was definitely identity involved, and a lot around success as well. That's a big part of me. Like on the Enneagram, I'm a 3, so image, success, wealth, those are like intrinsic to my personality. And so, with that, I was, my partner at the time, she wanted to have a website to share her spiritual stories. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I just want to make money. So I made the spiritual website. And that's where I started learning how to do digital marketing, how to do online stuff. And what I did is I started, sending out emails. I learned list building is a cool thing you should do in a business. So I started doing that. And people started thanking me for the emails. I was like, dude, I'm just trying to make some money here. I really didn't, care about making a difference. I really did not. I wanted my 6-figure job, the identity, right? My identity was I'm going to keep climbing the corporate ladder, and I just want to retire early, have my property, 401k, all that stuff. But I started feeling something. I started feeling appreciated. I started feeling like I made a difference in the world. And so all these letters of gratitude, I was like, I like this. I want to do this more. And that is what allowed the entrepreneurship part of me to shift from making money to making it different. And so that was, this evolution over a few years, again, with the diamond approach integrating as well, along with this, I just reached that point where I said, you know what? I can't be a father, a partner, a full-time employee, and run this business at night. Something's got to give. Mm-hmm. And I thought, do I want to wait all my life to retire? Do I want to wait until I'm retired to make a difference? And I realized, no, I don't. I can either keep doing what I'm doing, burn the candle at both ends, not get enough sleep, and not be there for everyone in my life, including my work, including the business I was building. Or I could exit, the identity, everything with the Silicon Valley job, and commit myself full time to making a difference in people's lives. I thought, again, I went through a whole bunch of identity stuff. Who am I to do that? Am I, why me? Do I have anything unique to say? Who am I to give, to take money in for my spiritual gifts? Shouldn't spirituality be free? Those questions. But then at the end of the day, it was like, well, if I don't, then I'm really not showing up as my fullest, most authentic, true self. I'm holding on to the ideas of what I should be an entrepreneur, should give away everything I do that's spiritual, and I shouldn't be a conscious entrepreneur. So that was really the identity things that had to, go through my mind and be twisted and pulled and teased apart, looked at, and then ultimately integrated. Wow. And that's when I finally had the courage to let my employer know, I'm going to be leaving. I need to do this full time. I'm making a difference, and I can make a bigger difference.
Nice. And what was that first, say 6 months post-corporate career like for you? Was it
absolute disappointment?
Right?
Oh my gosh. I hired this pro-level launch team. They just come off like a couple $1 million launches. They just launched Brendan Burchard. It was his very first launch. He had just done a $1 million Experts Academy launch. Nobody had heard of Brendan.
Right. So
I hired this amazing launch team. They launched David Wolf right before that, another $1 million launch in the health space. So I'm like, I'm going to hire the best of them.
Yep.
Right. And I paid upfront $20,000 plus, I paid them a royalty of 10% on everything in the launch, plus everything recurring for perpetuity as long as for anything that came from the launch. So it was a hefty fee I paid this team. We go in, we do the launch. When all is said and done, after technology paying them, after paying affiliate fees, prizes, everything goes into a launch, I was negative about $20,000. And I'm like,
after paying them $20,000, so you were actually negative about $40,000.
No, it was basically -20 after everything. I made some profit, but the whole net of everything was a -20 out of pocket. I'm like, this is not what I had in mind when I left a 6-figure job to become a 7-figure entrepreneur.
Right.
It just wasn't what I had in mind. But it positioned me really well in the industry for a lot of interviews, podcasts, summits, people coming to me for partnerships because they'd just seen how much visibility I gained from it.
Right.
So, when I look back on it, even though it was brutal and not at all what I thought leading into entrepreneurship was going to look like, it was just a tremendous gift. And the partnerships I developed over that time have lasted for 15 years, ever since, or 14, I guess, 2023. But, so for 14 years, some of those people have been partners and friends. But it was for 6 months, not at all what I thought I'd be doing. I was also getting divorced or closed out on homes that I couldn't afford to keep anymore because I couldn't keep the Silicon Valley condo going anymore. Every part of my life just got dismantled at that point. I always said I felt like my life was being deconstructed so that I could then put the pieces back together in ways that work. Again, that pursuit of truth. This whole puzzle, not working. Not it. Figure out what's true and then rebuild from the ground up.
What's your message, Chris, when you were teaching or doing spiritual empowerment work with your digital products? What was your message?
Teaching people to overcome self-criticism.
Oh, nice.
In my journey, in my path, what I found was that self-criticism is the number one thing that keeps us from moving forward in life. You want to meditate better? Oh, you've got a self-criticism around what a good meditation is, whether you're doing it right. Did you do it long enough? Are you going to get the results? Other people are doing it, right? So, and that's just one example on meditation. And how many thoughts did we just have that were critical?
Yeah.
And how much does that extend to our relationships, our parenting, our business or place of work, our friendships, the way that we eat,
our health,
diet, exercise. It goes on forever. And so for me, I realized that if I could get that critical voice out of the way, the sky was the limit. I could do anything with my life if I got myself out of my own way.
Yeah. Well, can you get that voice? I mean, so I kind of teach that the voice is going to be there. You just have to disempower it. Like I have it still after all these years of teaching and meditating in my own spiritual walk. I just see it kind of part of the human condition. It's the ego's defense mechanism so that you don't step out, don't take risks, don't do things that the ego determines to be dangerous, potentially harmful. So did you actually teach that you can get rid of or quiet that critical voice?
No, I look. Well,
I haven't learned it yet. I've learned.
I was going to say quiet and overcome are kind of the words that I tend to use.
Okay.
And it's not about whether it goes away forever, but there are moments where we can actually be free from it. And we can have more of those moments over time and have them last for longer periods of time. So in an ideal world, yes, we could be free from self-criticism if we had enough time to extend that timeline. In reality, no. In reality, most of the time it's, oh, I just judge myself. What else? Let it go.
Right.
Oh, I just judge myself. That's interesting. What's that about? Sometimes it's about engaging it, finding out what's true. Why does this recurring criticism keep coming up? Sometimes it's about, whatever, just let it go and move on. There's so many tools to work with it. Because at the end of the day, again, what about the pursuit of truth? What works for one person isn't inherently going to be the right way to work with someone else's, self-criticism for them to overcome or silence or distance from it, whatever that is.
Yeah, I love that. So, and then you ran that digital marketing, spiritual empowerment business for how many years?
It technically still exists.
No,
I just stopped selling those products.
Right. I want to distinguish that phase. So you sold it for how many years?
I ran from 2009 until 2016 is how long I sold products.
Okay. And then tell us what happened in 2016, where you went from like, this now is your business. This now is your income, being a digital marketer, selling digital programs. And you did something else in 2016. So tell us that story.
Yeah. So 2016, I went to a business event, a mastermind, what you and I call it. And, I was there and I kept telling people, we talk about what's going on in business. I'm like, yeah, not doing well. I'd talk about, I'm not enjoying it, blah, blah. And then I was on a plane flying home and I took a nap and I woke up from the nap and I just knew to stop selling. Spirit told me, stop selling your stuff. I was like, what? Like just cut out a revenue stream? Yes, Chris, that's what I'm saying. So as soon as I landed, I stopped selling my products. I took the links off my website. I took the emails out of my funnels. I didn't take the pages down. They still existed, but no one could get to any of this stuff. No one could buy my products. And so, I also realized, is it any wonder that side of my business wasn't working when I wasn't enjoying it? I kept telling people to mastermind, I'm not enjoying it and it's not working. Like, it's not rocket science to see it from the outside looking in, but in the moment I couldn't see it was too close.
Yeah.
So I stopped selling my products in 2016. And for a few months, I sat in this limbo. What do? I loved affiliate marketing. I still promoted my friend, had a lot of fun doing that. And then a few months later, Spirit was again very clear. So give away your product. Like, wait a minute. So first you want me to not sell them. Now you want me to give it away? Yeah, just give it away. So I went through all of my websites and funnels and I just changed it. So instead of when you got to that sales page, it still had a full-on sales page demonstrating the value of the program, but then it had, $0, and it showed that people could communicate, contribute through Patreon or send me a check or donate or tithe. So that was 2016, and I did that for a little while. Right around that time, I started an e-commerce store selling inspirational mugs, hats, shirts, stickers, you name it. Dove headfirst in that. Invested about $30,000 in coaching, in advertising, and technology, the whole 9 years. I just went, okay, I'm going to make this the best e-commerce store I can, 7-figure dream, just like I did when I launched my product back in 2009. Burned and crashed just like I did in 2009. Learned some invaluable lessons, but man, that was brutal. And Spirit said, go head first, go 100% in. So now I'm like, wait a minute. So you told me to go head first into this e-commerce store and then watch it epically fail and cost me tens of thousands of dollars. Why on earth would you do this to me, Spirit? I trust you, but what is up with this? And so then fast forward to...
Wait a minute. What was the message? Why did...
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
So, I didn't really know why it was epically failing, but I couldn't make it work. And so fast forward to the pandemic, 2020, I think it...
Yeah, 2020 is when the pandemic...
Just in my mind on the timeline for what I was doing. So 2020 pandemic rolls in, it's summertime, and I'm looking at my business going, so what's the truth of what actually works in my business? When I look at everything, I noticed that posting events like summits and things on my Facebook pages actually produced good results, produced revenue. So I thought, well, what if I gave it a trial? 3 months, I'll find as many events as I possibly can. Okay, fine. And revenue just went up and up. Yeah, just scaled month after month. And this was just Facebook. I wasn't doing anything I didn't have an email list. I had no website. I had all the other stuff, websites and email lists, but I had no email list or website for these events. And so finally, beginning of 2021, I said, fine, I will build the website. I will build the email list. I will take this business seriously, because the truth at the moment was that all of these things were working. And so I went full force into that. Now we're, 2.5 years later, 3 years later, and it is what I do, full time, looking for as many events that I can promote as an affiliate, summits and challenges and webinars and documentary series and stuff like that. And I love it because I get to keep giving away stuff for free. And that's something I started to tap into back in that whole side of giving away my products. I love giving, and it's not because I have to. It's not because I should, or spiritual entrepreneurs should give their gifts. I still support tons of people who sell all their stuff, and I love that. There's tremendous value in paying for programs and paying for the transformation that forces you to level up even further. That just isn't the truth of my energy. And so coming back to your question, how does this tie into the e-commerce crash and burn lesson for spirit? When I was doing that, one of the coaching programs I looked at said, look, you know what? People go in all these different directions, but you have to look at the data and make your decision on what to go next. Look at the truth of what your business is actually doing to figure out what those next steps should be. And that's what I did. I looked at the truth. The data said events seem to be working. So then I tried it out, and the data said, yes, this is really working. That's when I went to an email list and a website, and this is really working and continuing to expand. And so that's that progression all the way from 2009 to now, and all the different things that went through my psyche to get there, and business evolutions. But underneath it all, it's always been that pursuit of truth. What is real about how I'm showing up, how I'm serving, and what is real about my business, right? It is not the business it was 13 years ago.
Yeah. I love that. So I love how your process is so conscious, first of all, so driven by this kind of inner knowing. I mean, a lot of people now are calling that, 5D living, where you're not looking as much on the externals. Although you looked external to say what's working in my business, but you also looked to say that you didn't really enjoy parts of what you were doing. So it sounds like this combination of listening within, getting the guidance to look to see what the data actually told you, and then following that guidance into creating your spiritual events company.
Yes. And I think that ties into one of the challenges a lot of conscious entrepreneurs have is they follow their heart, like I did multiple times, without any data to back it up. Is there a market need for this? Is there any evidence in their business that it's a point they can leverage? Do they have any models from other people who they trust that they can lean into? And so as much as I love living from the heart, and it has led me to some amazing places in this whole journey, it's integrating that part of looking not just for the truth of me, but the truth of my business, its energy, its entity. If it were, what is it destined to become? What's that truth as well? Yeah. And I think that allowing ourselves to, as our conscious entrepreneurs, to lean into the technology or the marketing or the business side and look at that truth.
Yeah.
We can find a synergy that works where it's not just one or the other.
I love that. I love that whole notion that there's an energy of your business that wants to be birthed and expressed, just like there's an energy to you as well. Fantastic, Chris. So we need to wrap up. Is there anything that you want to leave people with? Any last thought that you haven't addressed yet that you'd like to put out?
No, it's all about the pursuit of truth. I mean, that is the heart, living in the present moment, but that's also the pursuit of truth. It's just another application of it.
Yeah. And taking those messages, that inner guidance, when you woke up from the nap on the plane and heard Spirit telling you, was that like a voice? Was it a feeling? How do you experience that?
I experienced that as just a concrete knowing. There was no voice. Yep. Nothing like that. It's just like, my whole body felt it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's really a delightful way to live. And I want to acknowledge you for your courage and your wisdom of knowing to follow that guidance and direction and that calling of Spirit rising within you. I know you and I are both committed to more and more people around the planet living that way every day. So, Chris, thank you so much. Chris Cade, who is the founder of spiritualgrowthevents.com. There'll be your website in the show notes. So spiritual entrepreneurs should be in touch with you, as well as people who want to enjoy spiritual growth events. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me and for this opportunity to serve your audience.